Hello and welcome to another tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how to make dubstep in the style of Objekt, inspired by his track The Goose That Got Away. This project will be made available for free below the video, as will the samples and presets for non-Ableton users. If you have any ideas for tutorials, please leave them in the comments or suggest them via my Discord, which is in the description. Also, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe if you're new to my channel. We are at 140 BPM and we're looking at an 8-bar loop. We'll start with the kick. I have faded and tuned the kick. It's in one-shot mode, and I've also used the pitch envelope to add more of a transient. You can see it's hitting an F sharp. Then we have some drum bus for drive and compression, and an EQ, removing low and mid-range frequencies to clean up the kick. For the Midi, we have a kick pattern which partially follows the bass. Next, we have the rim shot. The rim shot in the Goose That Got Away is very crushed and distorted, so I've used a few different types of distortion, including bit crushing, vinyl distortion, saturation, and drum bus. Then we have some EQ, removing very low frequencies and a resonance. I'll just take the processing off so we can listen without. We also have reverb applied via Send A. I've used this basement preset to try and replicate the type of space that this music would be experienced in. For the Midi, we have this dubstep garage pattern. The rim shots hit mainly on the 3, and I've used this groove with the timing and velocity set at 100. Normally, when utilizing grooves, I wouldn't use this much swing. However, I liked the loose feel of the 2-step groove as it reflects the reference track. The rim is cut at the end of the loop to make room for the clap fill. For the clap fill, we have a clap in simpler. For the processing, we have drum bus to add drive, EQ, removing low frequencies, and a longish reverb on the channel because I noticed a spacious sounding clap in Objekt's track. We also have reverb applied via Send A. We have this 2-step groove applied. Next up, we have the hats group. First, we have the closed hats. I felt a more live sounding hat works well in this context. And it's playing this offbeat house influenced pattern. Again, the groove is applied. Next, we have the first shaker. Again, with the Midi, the groove has been applied and it's a sparser pattern. If we listen to the hats group, we can hear how the samples complement one another. For the hats group, we have redux, saturation, and drum bus, and an EQ. I'll turn the processing off so you can hear the difference. The group has been panned a little to the left, and we have reverb applied again via send A. Next, we have the second shaker. This channel has very similar processing to the rim shot with lots of saturation and an EQ. This shaker has been panned to the opposite side to the hats group, and reverb has been applied via send A, and it's a bit more of a two-step influence pattern, again with the groove applied. I'll just solo all the drums together. Next, we have the basses. First, we have the stab bass. As usual, I've split the bass's frequencies using 2 different instances of Serum and some EQs. I'll put a tutorial in the top right of the screen now explaining this technique in more detail. For the sub, we have a sine wave that has been taken down by 2 octaves. The voicing is monophonic, and we have a stabbed shaped amp envelope. On the chain, we have a compressor doing some mild RMS style compression. And an EQ3 to split the frequency areas. For the top patch, we have a sine wave, which has been taken down by 2 octaves. Oscillator A is being modulated by oscillator B via the FM from B knob. Oscillator B is the default sine wave, and the FM from B knob is being modulated by LFO1, which is a sort of stab shape. The amp envelope and the voicing are the same as the sub instance, and we have distortion, tube distortion with a filter in the FX. On the top chain, we have an EQ3 to split the frequency areas. Finally, on the channel, we have an EQ to remove muddy resonances. For the Midi, we have a pattern based around quarter notes and dotted eighth notes. I didn't think too much about scales or key when I was making this. I just wanted something that suited the vibe well and reflected Objekt's style of dubstep. I felt this pattern fitted well with the drums. The kick partially follows the bass line. Next, we have the distorted kick. I haven't split the frequencies of this bass as I wanted it to feel a bit more rough and ready compared to the other basses to reflect a similar sound in the Goose That Got Away. I tuned this 808 using the transposition and added a pitch envelope for more of a transient. And we have some heavy saturation and an EQ. You can see that the distorted kick plays at the end of bars 2 and 6. And sits in between the stab basses, as does this next wobbly bass. I have used Massive this time. I find these type of garagey basses easier to create in Massive as opposed to Serum. For this sublayer, we have a sine wave taken down by 2 octaves and a low pass filter with its cutoff being modulated by envelope 1. The filter's resonance is at 50%. The voicing is mono rotate. On the chain, we have a compressor and an EQ3 to split the frequency areas. For the top layer, we have the same filter and voicing setup, but this time we have a square wave being taken down by 2 octaves. Remember, it's the resonance on the filter which helps make these types of sounds. I have some tube distortion and a dimension expander in the FX. On the chain, we have a high-passed EQ3. For the Midi, we have a couple of quarter notes playing at the end of every 4th bar. For the basses group, we have an EQ to remove low frequencies, a utility to ensure the bass frequencies are mono below 500 Hz, and a chorus to add width. Finally, there's a rack which I've used to sidechain the lowest frequencies using the kick, so there are no phase problems in the low end. And this is done by splitting the frequencies in the same way that I showed you earlier with the basses. Then we have reverb applied via Send A. Next, we have this bright white noise in Serum. Which plays at the beginning of every 4th bar. There is some echo and EQ applied, and then we have reverb via Send A. Then we have 2 instances of the same vocal texture sample. Vox FX1 has been taken down by 7 semitones, and Vox FX2 has been taken up by 4 semitones, which creates quite a dissonant harmony. Both channels have identical processing, drum bus for some character, an autopan for dynamics, an EQ cutting out low frequencies and a resonance, and some long reverb. Then we have a utility monoing below 500 Hz and a compressor to ensure consistency. Both have been sent to reverb on Send A as well. The Goose That Got Away has vocal texture as an integral part of the track, so this is something I was keen to emulate. If we listen to the mix and then I remove these elements, you can hear how much atmosphere they help to add. Next, we have these Rave chord stabs. This wasn't an element I specifically heard in Objekt's track. However, it augments the bass and makes the loop feel livelier. I'll just turn it off and on in the mix so you can listen to the difference that it makes. I've used an auto filter to dampen the sound with some drive added and then some EQ to remove low frequencies so the stab doesn't clash with the bass. There's bass monoing to 500 Hz and then finally some chorus for high-end width and then again reverb via send A. The MIDI pattern follows the bass stabs. Finally, we have a classic jungle vocal chop, which adds more vocal texture. Here we have some drum bus and then an echo followed by an EQ and reverb via send A. So that's the video. Thanks for watching and supporting the channel, and I'll see you soon.